Hey there, sweet puppies. Mommy's back again, and she's got some eerie, sinister stories. This video aims to share true encounters along with some fictional ones, and the best part is that I'm holding you nice and close, right where you belong, darling. It's warm, it's dark, and cozy. The world outside doesn't exist, just us and the sound of my voice. All right, puppy, let's get into the stories. Listen closely and you might just get a reward. Let's get into the first story. I met someone at work who didn't seem human. By your _grandmother 123. I'm 16 and I work at the local grocery store. I've had the job for about a year now. Since I'm still in high school, I don't work during the day. I usually get scheduled for 3 weekday shifts, mostly closing from 6 to 10. This past Wednesday seemed like a normal night. It was around 9, maybe 9:30, and I was just waiting for my shift to end. I was up near the front of the store, restocking cans, when I noticed a man walk in. I'm not great at guessing ages, but he looked like he was around 40. He was average height, maybe 5'10", and had this really pale skin like he hadn't been outside in a long time. His clothes didn't look dirty or anything, but they felt off, almost like they didn't fit quite right, like he had put on someone else's outfit. It was a plain gray hoodie and black jeans, but the hoodie sat too tight around the neck and the sleeves were too short. What caught my attention was the way he moved. He looked stiff, like inhumanly stiff. He was walking as if he didn't have any joints, just kind of rigid and unnatural. His arms hung straight at his sides, barely swinging, and his feet hit the floor hard with every step. It creeped me out a little, but I ignored it and kept working. A few minutes later, I finished, and my manager told me to restock some more things near the back of the store. So I grabbed the cart and headed back. And then the man appeared again. Same strange walk. He looked like he was searching for something, but had no idea what it was. When he noticed me, he walked over and asked where the soda was. His voice was haunting, cold and flat, like there was no emotion behind it. It made me feel uneasy. Up close, his face looked wrong. Not scary, just wrong. His skin was smooth in a way that didn't look natural, almost plastic. His eyes were sunken, but not in a tired way. They just looked hollow. And the weirdest part was how he blinked. It was slow, like someone acting out what blinking is supposed to look like. I told him what aisle it was in, and then he did something that really freaked me out. He repeated my exact sentence word for word, then said, "Thank you." That might not sound super weird, but in the moment it felt off. I finished up and went back to my manager. I looked around for the guy, but I couldn't find him anywhere. He must have left. I asked my manager if she'd seen him, but she said no. I asked the cashier later, and he said she had noticed his weird walk, but he hadn't bought anything. I went home and tried to forget about it, but I had trouble sleeping. I kept thinking about his face. It was uncanny, like a copy of a real person. It just didn't feel right. It's been a few days, and I still can't get his face or the way he walked out of my head. The next story, titled This Is My Story by Ringo Starr 48. This happened years ago, back when my family lived in a small house right beside a busy road. Across that road there were stores, everything from a Walmart to a bunch of food places. But our side, it was all woods, thick, quiet, and shaded. My grandparents lived just on the other side of those woods. The walk through the trees only took a minute or two, and I'd made the trip more times than I could count. Sometimes I'd come across a raccoon or a deer, but that was normal. Nothing out of the ordinary. One day, my mom was over at my grandparents' place and I was home alone. It was a sunny afternoon, the kind where the air is full of birds singing and everything feels peaceful. So I decided to walk through the woods and join her. I stepped into the trees, surrounded by the warmth of sunlight filtering through the leaves and the sound of birds singing. Everything felt normal until I heard it. I stopped. Did I hear someone? I said aloud, scanning the woods. Then I heard it again, my name. It was my mom's voice, clear as day, calling to me. At first, I didn't think much of it. She probably knew I was coming and had stepped outside to call for me. But then I realized something strange. The voice wasn't coming from the direction of my grandparents' house. It was coming from deeper in the woods. "Mom," I called out, confused. "Why are you out here?" No answer. Just my name again, same tone, same pitch, no urgency, no variation, just the exact same voice over and over. I started walking toward it, slowly at first. Maybe she needed help. Maybe something had happened. I called out again, and again she responded, always with just my name. That's when it hit me. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The woods had gone silent. Completely. No birds, no wind, no bugs. Not even the faint hum of cars from the busy road just behind me. It was like the world had just stopped. My heart began to race. I turned, and that's when I saw it. Up on a small hill, partially hidden in the trees, stood a tall, dark figure. No face, no movement. Just standing there, watching. I ran as fast as I could. I didn't look back. I didn't stop until I was inside my house, the door locked behind me, every curtain drawn. I collapsed by the window, staring outside for what felt like hours. The days that followed were filled with unease. I felt watched. Every time I was alone, every time it got dark. I never told my parents. I couldn't. I was too scared they'd laugh it off, or worse, that saying it aloud would make it real again. A year passed. We moved to another town, and for a while everything felt normal again, peaceful. Eventually I forgot all about the woods. Then one night, months after the move, my cousin came over to hang out. We laughed, watched movies, the usual. He left late and I went to bed not long after. To describe my room, my bed was right under the window. I laid down and closed my eyes until I heard it. A voice, my name. It was the way my cousin says it. Same pitch, same inflection. But it was wrong, distorted, and it was coming from right outside my window. I froze, eyes wide, breath caught in my throat. The voice repeated my name again and again. I didn't move. I didn't respond. I didn't even blink. It kept going for what felt like an hour. I didn't sleep that night or the next. Eventually, it stopped. And to this day, I've never had another incident, and I hope I never will. The Man Who Watched Us Sleep by Anteater, early 7773. I'm from Sri Lanka. I'm 26 years old and I'm a Buddhist. This is my first time sharing something online, especially a story like this. It's about the creepiest thing that's ever happened to me back when I was in high school. I've wanted to write it down for years, but every time I tried, something got in the way. Well, here it goes. This happened when I was in grade 10 or 11. My younger brother and I shared a bed back then. He was in grade 6 or 7. Before I get into the story, let me paint the picture. Our room faced the main Colombo Candy Road. The bed was shoved into a corner with the headboard against the wall. At the foot of the bed, there was a tiny gap, maybe 2 feet, between us and a wardrobe that was pressed tightly against the opposite wall. On the other side of the room was the door. Right next to it sat an old iron table with one short leg. If you bumped into it, it would wobble and make a loud da-da sound because it couldn't stay steady. Okay, here's where it starts. That night, my brother and I climbed into bed around 9:30 or 10 p.m. I couldn't sleep. It was hot and sticky, and I felt restless. My brother, though, fell asleep quickly. Through the curtain on our door, I could still see the living room light glowing. About 30 minutes after we got into bed, my mom, dad, and sisters turned off the lights and went to sleep too. I shut my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. The heat, the sweat, it was brutal. I tried so hard to doze off, but nothing worked. Hours dragged by, maybe 2 or 3, and I was still awake. By then, the road outside was completely quiet, not a single car passing. Then, out of nowhere, I heard it, footsteps inside the house. Slow, steady steps, like someone wearing shoes walking across the tiled floor, coming from the living room toward our room. No rush, just calm, deliberate steps. Getting louder, getting closer. My heart started pounding. The sound stopped right at our door. I kept my eyes squeezed shut, too terrified to look, and pulled the sheet over my head like it could protect me. For a moment, everything was dead silent. Then, Dadas. The table in our room made its loud, wobbling sound like something had bumped into it. Now I knew someone was there. Forget the heat. I was sweating from pure fear, trembling under the sheet. I wanted to peek, but I was frozen with terror. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Still pretending to be asleep, I slowly slid the sheet down and cracked my eyes open just a bit. What I saw made my blood run cold. A man was sitting on the table. He looked like he was dressed for a job interview. Long pants, a tucked-in long-sleeved shirt. His hair was long enough to brush his shoulders. With my eyes half open, I couldn't make out his face clearly, but he was right there. One leg rested on the chair, the other on the floor, his hand on his hip, staring directly at our bed. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I tried again and again. Nothing. I couldn't even turn toward my brother. My body felt like stone. Panicking, I shut my eyes tight and yanked the sheet back over my head. I was shaking now, absolutely terrified. Minutes passed, maybe more, and I didn't hear a thing. My brother shifted in his sleep next to me, but that was it. I had to look again. Still pretending to be asleep, I carefully eased the sheet down and peeked toward the table. He was gone. Relief washed over me for a moment, until I realized, where did he go? I lowered the sheet a little more and glanced toward the wardrobe at the foot of our bed. There he was, standing right at the edge of the bed, looking down at us. Tall, maybe 6 feet, dressed just as sharply as before. The wardrobe was about 6 feet tall too, and he matched its height exactly. Sweat drenched me, but I felt ice cold. I couldn't move. My brother kept tossing and turning, completely unaware. I couldn't even nudge him. My arm wouldn't move. Desperate, I squeezed my eyes shut again and thought, whatever happens, just let it happen. After a while, I forced myself to look again. I tilted my head slightly, cracked open my eyes, and checked the foot of the bed. He wasn't there. No sounds, no movement. I glanced toward the table. Empty. I felt a flicker of relief. Whoever he was, he's gone, I told myself. Feeling slightly safer, I adjusted my pillow and looked up. That's when I saw something I'll never forget, as long as I live. Even typing this now, my hands are shaking. My ears feel frozen. Remember how I said our bed was pushed against the wall, with barely an inch of space behind the headboard? No way anyone could fit back there. But when I looked up, he was there. The same long-haired man perched on the headboard, leaning directly over me. His face was so close there couldn't have been more than a foot between us. That's all I remember. I think I blacked out. The next thing I knew, it was morning. My brother wasn't beside me. Still lying in bed, I tried to make sense of it. What happened last night? Was it a dream? Or real? I was sure it had happened, but I tried to convince myself it was just a nightmare. My head throbbed and I felt feverish. Groggy, I stumbled into the living room. It was empty, but I heard my mom and brother chatting in the kitchen. I walked in, still trying to figure out how to tell them what I saw. But then my brother said something that froze me in place. He was telling my mom, "Amma, last night some guy came into our room. He was by the table first. Then he went over to Aya's side and leaned right over his face." I shut my eyes. I was terrified. When I looked again, he was by the wardrobe. I turned away, too scared to scream, though I tried. Later, I peeked again, and he was on the bed, leaning over Aya's face, staring at him. I clamped my eyes shut and must have passed out. Hearing that, my shaky fever turned into full-blown chills. For a whole month after that, we played Buddhist Pirith chants in our room non-stop. Pirith is like Christian prayers, sacred chants for protection. Nothing strange happened again. But get this. Before that night, my older sister had told us something weird too. She said that one afternoon while napping, someone had grabbed her hair and yanked her off the bed, telling her to get down. We laughed back then, thinking she was joking. After this, we weren't so sure. Some might believe this is true. Others might say it's nonsense. That's up to you. But I've still got questions that haunt me. How did he lean over me like that without falling? How could anyone fit in that tiny space behind the bed? What was that thing? For a long time afterward, I was terrified to sleep. Every time I lay down, I'd stare into the dark, heart racing, dreading the moment I might see that man again, staring down at me from the shadows.